All right, friends. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about my financial fast. And what kind of led to that financial fast. And so, back in December, I noticed myself growing very discontent. And there was a part of me that, yes, I was grateful for the life that I have. But there's a difference between I should be grateful versus I am grateful. And I was definitely sitting in, I should be grateful because from the outside looking in, and even in my life now, like just taking a look at it, I'm so blessed. In all areas of my life, I'm so grateful and praise God for all of that. And at the same time, I felt this deep level of discontent where I just did not feel like happy. And I couldn't figure out why. I was like, okay, I have a good life. I have a profitable and sustainable business. My kids are doing well. Jacob's doing well. My marriage is vibrant and juicy and all the things. I'm like, why on earth am I like discontent and like making myself miserable? And so, it was very interesting. So I'm gonna take you to Marshall's with me, okay? So I'm at Marshall's, and mind you, at this point, I'm looking for something to buy. And I didn't even realize at the time that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to feel fulfillment through buying things. And yes, I'm a conscious circulator, which means I know where all my money is going at all times. So it's not that I don't have the money, but I think it plays with your mind a little bit when you have the money to spend and there's a part of you that's like, I'm looking for fulfillment. I just want to feel like happy, right? So I go to Marshall's. I'm like, I'm just gonna pick up a purse. Mind you, I'm not a big purse person. I'm not a big like luxury person at all. Like I'm very like a normal person, like mama, every single day, like after school sports, all the things. And so like I'm just not a big luxury person. And if you are, totally fine. But just giving you a little bit of my background, like this isn't something I normally shop for. And so I'm like going through Marshalls and I'm like, oh, I'll just buy like a really nice purse. And then I had to hit pause because there was something within me that felt icky about it. Now, there's nothing wrong with buying like luxury purses or expensive purses, whatever. But it was more than that. It was like I found this habit that I was caught in last month where it's like just thinking about it makes me like really sad. It's like I'm trying to find happiness. I'm trying to feel fulfillment. There's a part of me that just does not feel content. And I didn't know why. So I had to hit pause. My husband's like, "Oh, why didn't you get the purse?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. I'm gonna come back to it. Like if it really is something I want, I'll come back to it." Because there's still enough mindfulness within me to know that there was something off. Like, what was I searching for? I didn't know what it was. Like, I was searching for something to fill me. Um, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And then, it's December. So I was just like, found myself constantly like on social media. And then I think it was still maybe earlier this month or later of last month where I attended a webinar. Information basically it was for Cody Sanchez, and she was inviting us into her mastermind. For those who already had like successful businesses, inviting them into a mastermind with her to acquire businesses. And I was like, okay, amazing. This is like what I'm going to do. I'm going to start acquiring businesses. Like, this is like where I kind of see myself. And then, like, I found myself like constantly on a regular basis. So that's part one. Part one was like, I found myself in a constant state. I was like always needing to buy a thing, always wanting to like feel like this hit of like dopamine to like feel good because at that time I just didn't feel content. And then, I started scrolling. I was constantly like watching YouTube videos. Layla Hormozi, Cody Sanchez, and then as I'm on like Instagram, their feed will pop up, and in the beginning, it's very inspiring. And I feel like the problem sometimes with being inspired by someone, and you're like, oh, if she can do it, I can do it too. And like she's revealing the exact steps on how to do this, and you're like so inspired by them. Um, and then what slowly starts to happen over time, I noticed with myself is like day after day, I started feeling really crappy about myself. Like there was a part of me that felt like I'm older than them, they're younger than I am, and like maybe I'm just not smart enough. Like I can't figure it out. Like suddenly then my investment portfolio didn't feel like where it should be. Suddenly, my business felt like I was not where it should be. Whereas, like, they're younger than I am, smarter than I am, like all these things, right? It's comparison. I knew, and at the time, it's hard. Like when you're in comparison, in some ways, you don't even realize that you're comparing yourself to these people because it's in your subconscious. You're just scrolling, you're just watching YouTube videos, and I'll like her post. It's like, oh, that's a great quote. And it's like, oh, yes, I need more discipline. I need to like wake up even earlier. I need to like do more output, whatever that is. And I found myself in this state where it's just like I was making myself miserable and I had no idea I was making myself miserable. Um, and like suddenly everything that felt like it was enough didn't feel like it was enough anymore. I was like, oh, they are making so much more than I am. I'm like here and they're like here. And like, why am I not there yet? My investment portfolio is here, but theirs is here. Like, why do I like honestly, there was a part of me that's like, why do I suck so much? Like, why is it that they're younger than I am and I can't figure this out? So admiration quickly began to create this comparison where I went from admiring them to like comparing myself to them. And that's such a hard space to be because it really, really messed at my self-esteem. Like so much so that like as someone who does mindset work, as someone who does like emotional work, there's that nature. I knew something was off and I couldn't figure out I knew there's a part of me that was like desired so much to be where they are that it started eating at my self-esteem. It started making me feel like I was not smart enough. I was not where I needed to be to to be there. Like, does that make sense? Like where you just feel like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna make it there. And like, why can't I do it? Like, what's wrong with me? Um, and so fast forward to January, my church family is entering into a fast. And one of the first things, very interesting enough, with fasting, you want to choose something that actually is hard for you to give up. So you're probably thinking, oh, well, it makes sense that she's going to give those things up. No, no, no. So the first thing that came to mind was I was like, I'm going to give up alcohol. I chose that because I've done it before. And honestly, like last year, I gave it up in January. What ended up happening on its own naturally was like, I just ended up almost not drinking again until like October or so for like my birthday. It was just something that I chose because for me, it was really important that I have this reliance on God where even if I'm stressed, yes, I have the tools to be able to recalibrate, be able to help regulate my nervous system. But I always want to make sure that I'm in a space where when I am so stressed out, I never want to turn to like, I'm gonna have a glass of wine. Okay. That's just like a personal thing that's very important to me is that when life is that difficult, the first thing, my response for me, I want to be able to pray. I want to say, okay, work through this, clear this, but we're going to pray. We're going to tap into like the power of prayer, tune into the creator and say, God, like help me. I don't know what to do. Help reveal the next steps, all of that. That's what I want to do for myself personally. And so when my husband and I were talking and he's like, oh, what are you going to fast from? And I was like, oh, I'm going to do alcohol. And he like kind of like looked at me kind of funny simply because he's like, you did that last year. And also part of it was because he knew it was not hard. So I was picking something that was actually pretty easy for me at this point because I've done it already. And honestly, I knew that I could just give it up easily. And I was doing a lot of praying and it kept coming back. Like I needed to do this financial fast. And I was like, oh God, like I really don't want to give up like fasting from spending money. I know that sounds silly for a lot of you because it was this part of me that like really wanted fulfillment. And I thought that like if I just buy a ton of things, I would just like be fulfilled. And so I was like, no, I don't want to give up my Marshalls trip. I don't want to give my Target trip. I don't want to give my Amazon shopping. Like that's really, really hard. And so that's how I knew I was just like, this is what God is calling me to give up. And usually when I'm doing fasting, I pick like one thing, but there was something else that was tugging at me and also something like I was so resistant to, and it was God was calling me to fast from social media. Like I had to take a break. And that's so hard for my mind because in my mind, I'm thinking, I run an online business. You're asking me, directing me directing me to give that up, what's going to happen financially. But the crazy thing in my mind was I already knew it wasn't going to affect me financially because I did not build my business to be reliant on social media. My business would not be where it is if that was the case. So, but it was secretly, or not secretly, because God knew, was that I wanted like that to be able to grow, right? It's crazy because you know that you're comparing yourself, but yet you're still on social media, still continuing to compare yourself. So it was like this negative feedback that I would give myself was like, okay, I'll scroll and like get that first, you get that dopamine from like scrolling, right? And then it was like I would just go into like that comparison because now I'm like, oh, seeing like their feeds and things like that, and then feeling bad. But it was like reinforcing it. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I committed to it. So that's what I did. Because for me, it's always important that when I ask God for direction, no matter how hard it is, no matter how it felt like it was impossible. And for some people, you're laughing at this, right? You're like, it's not that hard to stop shopping for like a month. But for me, it really was. I am like, my natural state is a spender. I love spending money, but I spend money very consciously. So for, anyone who's in my academy, you know exactly how I spend money because I teach you that same step on how to be a conscious circulator because conscious circulation creates multiplication and multiplication is what creates wealth. And so I'm very big on that principle. But the problem I was running into is because I had that extra money to spend in my spending account, right? You have different buckets for how you consciously circulate money. My spending account, it was like I felt this need to like spend it to receive fulfillment. There's a difference between spending where you're being mindful and you're like, oh, I actually want this and I'm going out and I'm just gonna, circulate money that way versus like I need to feel happy right now. And so I'm gonna go to Marshalls and browse. So I want to feel happy right now. So I'm gonna go to Target so I can feel happy. And that's where I was. And so I I stopped. So for the entire time of our church family fasting, I didn't go into a Marshalls or Target. I didn't order anything on Amazon other than like, grocery. Sometimes we'll buy like extra groceries, things like that. And then I also stopped scrolling on social media. And let me tell you right now how much clarity I received from that. And then my mindset began shifting because the time I was using to grow on social media, the time I was using to compare myself to her, to them, to whoever it is that you do, how much it really helped my self-esteem. And I was able to get back to the truth of who I was. More importantly, I was get back to the truth of where my fulfillment, where my identity lies. My identity lies in Christ. My identity lies in um the fruit of the spirit. My identity lies in being who I am, walking in that truth versus that versus having my identity tied to how much money did my business make this month? How many products did I sell? How many clients came in? And I think as a business owner, it's so easy, so easy for our identity to be tied to that. Um, and once you know it, the less time I spend scrolling on social media, the less time I spend comparing myself, it also allowed me to feel find fulfillment back in getting back into the word, feeding myself spiritually, and making sure that I spend more intentional time with God. And so that was really what my financial fast for me was. It was helping me to recommit my relationship to God, really removing it's so easy. I think we hear it, but we don't realize until we're doing it. Or sometimes we're doing it and don't realize it. It's so easy on social media for us to fall into comparison. Where suddenly it's like, oh, I didn't realize how susceptible, how I could over time subconsciously actually take inspiration to be feedback that I suck, that I'm not good at this, that I need to be further along. That's the biggest thing. Like, I need to be further along my business. My investment portfolio needs to be where theirs are. I need to move faster. I need to be more self-disciplined, like all these things. And it felt like no matter what you do, it just didn't feel enough. It felt like I wasn't doing enough self um improvement. It felt like I wasn't investing enough. Like, and then suddenly you just overall just felt like you weren't enough. And so that's really what I had to work on. And so being separated from social media actually gave me a lot of my soul back. Gave me a lot of my just like you just feel so good in your body, knowing what your truth is and affirming who you are. And it's like, I built my business from nothing. It took me 7 years to get where I am in business. And I'm so freaking proud of what God and I co-created together. I'm so freaking proud of what, I always say my business is not just my business. I tell my husband this all the time. It's our business because without him, I was able to deepen my appreciation of him because without him watching our special needs son, like I don't want to have the time, the capacity to then be able to run my business. I'm so grateful for that. Like all those things. So it really just helped me remain in this state of like love for my life, for my family. Um, and this deepening my relationship with God is like, it is so easy, really, really easy to chase especially I think here in the United States where, there's that hustle culture and that chase, it feels like it's relentless and it's never ending where it's time to like hit pause. And so now it's like I'm getting back to what I have been doing, focusing on just not forced gratitude where it's like, oh, I should be grateful more. So it's like, wow, I am so grateful for this life. Like I have a really good life, and I'm grateful for that. And I feel like in all seasons of my life, even when we were living in our smaller home, it's like I had to remind myself there's always in all seasons of your life there's just so much to be grateful for, and in realizing that the more I deepen my relationship with God, the more I cultivate that gratitude, that's a feeling of what it is that I do have, and I just have so much appreciation. So, with that being said, if you are of faith, I highly recommend doing some sort of fast. If what I said about buying and spending money, trying to feel fulfillment, really resonates with you, doing a financial fast would be something I highly recommend. If you're feeling like, you know, I've been comparing myself a lot. And I'm going from admiration to really destroying my mental health by comparing myself to other people on social media, it's okay to take a break and say, you know what, I'm going to fast from that. Whether you're a person of faith or someone who's just like, I just want to fast because I realize I haven't been showing up fully as myself. It's really something is messing with my like self-esteem. I just need to take a break from all the noise. Maybe you're just in a space where you're like, I just need to take a break from all the noise and get back to what is most important to me. And for me, like deepening that relationship with God, going back to my reliance on God is so important because you're not going to find fulfillment elsewhere. The chase will always keep going, no matter where you're at. Let's say your investment portfolio is at like 1 or 1.5 mil. Suddenly it's not enough. Now you want to be at like 10 mil. Then you're at 10 mil and you're like, oh, I want to be at 20, whatever it is. It's like it just keeps moving. And so and that's where the discontentment stems from is us realizing it's hard for us to appreciate how far we've come. Like we compare ourselves not to like where I was to here, what was comparing. There's a book, The Gap and the Gain. I'm actually going to revisit that book because I find myself time and time again, sometimes going to that gap space of like, I'm here, but I want to be where they are. And I'm focusing on this big major piece of it. It's just like I want to be where Layla Homozy is. I want to be where Cody Sanchez is versus like comparing. It's like, Okay, well, let's reflect back to where Michelle was 7 years ago. Let's reflect back to where she was 3 years ago. And so I think that piece of it is so important. And so I'm gonna make sure I link that in the description. I'm gonna revisit that book. And if you've read the book, I would love to hear what came through for you. If this resonates with you, please leave that in the comments. Would love to hear from you. I hope this was helpful. I hope that encourages you to just think through. It's like, okay, if I'm feeling discontentment right now, what can I fast from? What can I say? I'm going to create margin. I'm going to remove the noise and allow myself the spaciousness to just breathe, allow myself to just be in a space where it's like me and God co-creating with God. It's like let's get back to that level of fulfillment where you just can't find anywhere else. I know that to be true because I've chased it. I've chased it. That's the reality of it. I've chased it, and then time and time again, I do find myself in that space, especially because part of my job, part of my business is on social media. It is on like these different platforms. And so I just have to be more mindful about and being more aware of that. So I hope this was encouraging for you to fast, to figure out something that maybe you want to take breathing room from, create margin from, whether that's a financial fast or whether that's from social media or whether that's from anything else, and then just real quick as well. And yes, I did give up alcohol as well, but that honestly was just super easy for me because I've done it before and I don't have like a reliance on it. And so, yeah, that is pretty much it. Let me know in the comments what you're going to be fasting from if this resonates with you. And I will catch you next time, friends. Sending you lots of love.